Hello everyone and welcome to SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guests, we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes. I'm delighted to be joined today by Russell Smith, Vice President of ERP Transformation Technology at AstraZeneca. Welcome, Russell.
Welcome. Thanks, Craig.
And in today's episode, we'll be getting Russell's perspective on SAP's newly announced collaboration with Snowflake, very much hot off the press, which apparently will enable organisations to use Snowflake's AI Data Cloud and the SAP Business Data Cloud together. So really looking forward to this, Russell. And just before we get into that, I just thought to ask you, what's your biggest kitchen disaster story?
Well, where do I start with that one? There's been quite a few, I would say. Unfortunately, a few of them involved me not realising certain fish couldn't be consumed raw. So I'll leave it there and let the imagination run wild for our listeners.
I must admit, I've got a few myself. One was, you know, those pizzas. The crusts that rise when the kids were small. My wife had left me alone with the children one evening, and I was putting one of them in the oven, but I didn't put it on the base, and it just melted through the bars in the oven, and pretty much lost my temper with myself. And I had like one of those fish slices in my hand, and I just hit the floor with it, whatever, and it just ended up being at a 90-degree angle. I just looked at the kids and they just started laughing. So anyway, it diffused the situation. But yeah, always remember with those rising crusts to have a base underneath it.
Good idea.
Okay, back to our main topic of conversation, if we can. And to kick things off for our new listeners, could you tell us a little bit about you and your role at AstraZeneca, please, Russell?
Yeah, no problem, Craig. So I'm Russ Smith. I'm the Vice President of ERP Transformation Technology. What that means in practice is that I'm leading all the technology on what is the largest transformation and tech program in AstraZeneca called Axial, which is effectively moving us on to SAP, S4HANA and the Business Suite. As part of that, I'm also part of the AstraZeneca's IT leadership team, and I dual report into our global CIO and our SVP for the transformation program. I also own the SAP relationship for the company as a whole globally.
Oh, thank you for that. And at the top level, as we get into the conversation, how do you see the SAP and Snowflake's partnership benefiting customers?
Well, when you've got a partnership that involves the largest ERP vendor in the world, which is a key source of the world's business data, and an AI cloud giant like Snowflake, I can only see upsides for unified real-time data sharing. Historically, large ERP and hyperscalers and AI companies overlapped and competed in many areas, which made it pretty confusing, I would say, to figure out what you buy and from where. I think this decision actually removes what could have been a difficult or decision by product A or by product B. But actually it now inserts an and decision. So where you can have the best of both worlds potentially realized between SAP and Snowflake. It really recognizes that we often have differing AI and data priorities for, say, operational use cases versus enterprise use cases, which generally require more than just SAP data.
Thank you. And in the press release that I was reading the other day, you were quoted on behalf of AstraZeneca, being mentioned in the announcement as one of the organisations already benefiting from that partnership. So can you tell us a bit more about how you and AstraZeneca are benefiting through this?
Yeah, no problem. It was great that they did mention us, and that really does reinforce the partnership that we have with both of those companies. So SAP is our strategic ERP platform, and Snowflake is our strategic enterprise data platform, and we use them at scale across multiple functional and geographical areas. This really meant we were the perfect partners to be in at the ground floor when this was even being discussed as a possibility, and we help to support and shape that partnership. Now, we're in the early stages of our multi-year business transformation, Axial, that I talked about. And with our first go live of the pilot site coming up, we wanted to really look at how this could benefit the program and the organization. And what we realized from the pilot, where we were moving data around, was that the effort and complexity of putting SAP data into alternate data platforms was a potential barrier to success, particularly for our bigger rollouts. So for us, this announcement allowed us to approach use cases differently, both in terms of time to realization or build, but also importantly in the project with what we need to test. So it really helped us straight away look at things differently and potentially compress our timelines.
Oh, fantastic. And, you mentioned earlier unified real-time data sharing. SAP in the press release talks about zero copy data sharing and semantically rich data. Please, layman's terms, what do they actually mean in practice for businesses like AstraZeneca?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's important to explain what those terms mean to me first, because over the last 6 months in our discussions with both those companies and internally, we've realized that we often say the same thing, but depending upon your background and focus, you interpret it slightly differently. And that is important, particularly between technical data folks and SMEs and just, as you said, layman business consumers. So for my answer, zero copy means being able to access data in another system in real time without, importantly, the need to move it. And by its nature, it's a real-time view. In this case, either Snowflake, data available for analytics or AI in the SAP Business Data Cloud, or vice versa. Now, semantically rich is probably where people, have differing views on what it means. But for me, it means simply defining and aligning the business meaning in the data between our systems. So in old speak, it was creating consistent and understandable meaning for metadata. So a business user knows exactly what the data means and what its purpose and what its function is. So using those definitions, what does that mean for us? Well, firstly, it means we move less data around the organization. Now, that's hugely important. Less cost, quicker time to build, less errors, simpler maintenance. It also means we get real-time access to that unified business critical data sources. So we have less stale data in our analytics and AI platforms, because if you're moving stuff around, it's out of date before you know it. This means our reports are real-time, and most importantly, they're from a truly trusted source. So they are coming right from the golden source of SAP. Now, that means as well that the data is understood universally. So not just an SAP meaning or a Workday meaning or something else, but actually universally understood across business areas. So the business no longer need translators, if you like, when IT enter the room and start talking data and tech. So SAP's really important, rich business context is preserved. So as you can see, that's hugely impactful for most organizations, I would say, particularly when you want to have a nirvana of a business user asking a question in their own language via NLQ, and then NLQ translating it into a report that's generated real time. That just can't happen unless you have that semantically rich real-time data I talked about.
Well, fantastic. Thank you. And so this change, this integration between those solutions, like you say, not having to copy that data from system to system, you've got real-time access between the systems. So are there any other ways that will change the way that you access and use data across your organization?
Yeah, it absolutely could. It could be transformational. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of caveat in here because we're in the early days of looking about this, how this product can be deployed. Because for me, the answer to this one will be largely influenced by the final commercial model that SAP put in place with Snowflake. That isn't entirely transparent at the moment. So how consumption units in the business data cloud work in practice will have a huge influence on how we can use it. So what I would like to happen is to open up a sort of perpetual zero copy data pipeline or superhighway of data between SAP and Snowflake. And then, subject to security, allow data and AI to pick the context-rich data they want. Now, that would mean we don't have to have loads of static integrations back and forward, loads of mini pipes. So if I could open up that sort of superhighway that is secure, that really will change the way that we access data across the organization. So bringing the AI and the analytics to the data versus the traditional way in the past of moving data to the AI and analytics platform is a massive cultural shift as well for any organization. So I think that ERP, SAP, Oracle, and Workday have really realized it can no longer and shouldn't be the hoarder of all data. It recognizes that external data and AI platforms fulfill some business needs better, and ERPs have different strengths. And for me, this is similar to where we were 10, 20 years ago in IT, where we had the debate about should we move our data to the cloud. So if you take that example, moving data to the cloud now we know puts it in the hands of experts in hosting and security versus our own legacy on-premise data centers. This allowed IT to focus skills where it was better and hyperscalers to focus where they were better. I see this as a big parallel between ERP and the data and AI platforms, and it's only a good thing for us all.
And I'm assuming, the ultimate kind of areas we're looking to get to here for an organization and is improving productivity, speed, accuracy of insights across the whole business.
Yeah, absolutely. It will undoubtedly result in accelerated and trusted decision making, because you no longer have to prove you're using the right data, because you are looking directly at real-time golden source information. It also, I think, indicates for most organizations the direction of travel for SAP with data and AI platforms. So if you think over the last year, it started with the Databricks statement. Then there was Palantir. Recently, there was Google. And I'm sure more hyperscalers will be announcing very soon. AWS and Microsoft have got to come to the party pretty quickly. Now, that momentum can only help innovation across the board for ERP. And, zero copies here to stay. It's the new normal. And that's got to accelerate innovation as all of those companies start figuring how they can use that ERP data.
And with that, as you say, kind of trusted data that you will have across I suppose one of the benefits from that will be better decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you take most organizations, probably they have one data hop into that decision making platform. Some will have many more, right? I know we're not perfect in that space. So if you take the view that where did the data come from impacts the trust and the speed of decision making, that gets removed immediately. And also what generally happens is the more hops you have, the sort of quality of the data reduces as you move between hops. So you'll end up with people running really funky reports that is on data that may be so out of date that a really simple report run on SAP starts creating a debate about who's right and who's wrong between finance and HR and procurement and supply chain. This removes that problem straight away.
Fantastic.
We know our community, but we don't know yours yet. Why not share the benefits of your UK&I sub membership with those who don't know about us? The UK&I sub referral scheme rewards you for helping to grow and develop our community. You can check out the link in the description to find out more about how you can get involved. Terms and conditions apply. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So where do you see the biggest opportunities for this combination of SAP's business data with Snowflake's AI and analytics capabilities in the future?
Probably ask me that in 6 months and I'll have some more concrete examples for you. But we've already mapped out a series of opportunities that we want to go after in the early work ahead of the general availability of the product. So at a high level, that intersection between context-rich, business transactional and metadata and wider non-ERP unstructured data sources is where I want to aim high. That's really where you're going to get the real power. So one of the use cases that we discussed with Snowflake earlier on, and that they mentioned in their own announcement, is where we want to try and get insight and decisions from bringing SAP's production, inventory, and shipping data, bringing that into Snowflake and mapping it together with external logistics provider information, which could be SAP's business network, or it could be from a provider like DHL. Bringing in local weather, traffic information, IoT information from trucks, and then really merging it for real-time oversight of our end-to-end supply chain. Now, that really is a nirvana for an organization, because us and many others realized that COVID was a huge wake-up call regarding global supply chain fragility and needing us to move from being reactive in understanding our supply chain to being proactive and then actually predictive is where we can get with this sort of use case. So AI and data will make this a reality. You can map that use case to anything from planning in finance or other areas as well. But it's that mixture of ERP plus other rich data that's probably unstructured that's going to be the biggest value, I think, for organizations.
Thanks. And on that kind of unstructured data, and perhaps even looking at fragmented data, because we have many organizations still struggling with fragmented data across multiple systems. And you mentioned earlier how this one view and access across all the systems of data. So do you think that the SAP and Snowflake collaboration could help solve that challenge?
I think the technology will certainly help, but it isn't going to solve everything. You've got to go at the other root causes. So what I see is that a lack of enterprise governance and ownership and accountability of data and data products still needs to be addressed first. It's not sexy, but if you don't do that, the tech won't solve your problems. If you don't have clear ownership that allows and importantly prevents key business data being accessed and interpreted at will, you'll only have one outcome in the organization, and that's chaos. And people pulling data into their own functionally siloed systems and producing reports and outcomes that they want to present. So siloed data sources with access restrictions made it inevitable, I think, that copies of data flew around the enterprise. So each copy, like a good sort of sci-fi cloning movie, reduces in quality and value as you clone it the next time. And I think this approach should open the data up and prevent fragmentation to some degree. But as I said, it isn't a magic pill. You've got to go after some core root causes like governance and ownership, I would say.
And so AI obviously is a big part to play in this, and we hear a lot about AI readiness, if you like. So what does that mean for a company like AstraZeneca in practical terms?
Yeah, no, that's a really complex and all-encompassing definition. And again, I'm sure you could ask 10 people and get 10 different answers on that one. So from what I've seen practically on the ground at the moment is multiple layers of AI readiness. So firstly, to achieve that nirvana, you've got to sort out the foundations first before you start building pretty AI houses on top of it. So that's making sure the data is accurate, understood, secured, trusted, clear ownership and governance, etc. And that for me is just the table stakes. Though some will argue AI will mean you don't need to be as clean as you had to be in the past because AI will sort out the wheat from the chaff. Now, I don't subscribe to that yet. I don't think the AI is good enough just to look at raw data and clean it up and make it perfect. But that data foundation is the table stakes, as I said. Then the next level for me is an AI savvy workforce. So letting your organization loose on AI tools will only end one way, and it won't be pretty. Especially when your IP starts flying out the door. You start training models you can't control, or describe or understand. And you start getting decisions you don't really want. And people don't challenge them because they blindly believe the AI. So we've invested a lot in AZ for upskilling our workforce, making AI education available across the whole organization in a tiered manner. And we only allow access to certain tools when you reach a certain level of maturity in that training, right? Now, that's been hugely successful. And when I say the whole organization, I mean the whole organization. That's people in our factories, that's people in HR. It's not just IT geeks and data scientists. And that's been hugely successful for us, with the majority of our enterprises trained at basic levels. I looked at some statistics recently, and I think we've got about 40,000 of our employees trained on basic AI already. And at the top levels, we've got around about 5,000 already. So those are real super geeks, and they love the tools, and the data shows that they're using it. And finally, then the last tier is the tooling itself. So my strong advice out here is don't waste time picking tools, because what that means is you're going to waste a lot of effort in your organization, and it's the equivalent of pouring concrete when you really want flexibility and innovation. I can tell you that by the time you put a hugely passionate crowd in a room and debate what is the right tool for the organization, all of those folks will believe their baby's the prettiest in the creche. And you'll find by the time you come to an uncomfortable agreement and consensus, the tool you've probably picked is already obsolete. That's the speed of the market. So the other analogy I'd use is treat it like the Samsung versus Apple debate. You will never convince an Apple person that Samsung is better, and vice versa. You don't need to. They both do pretty much the same thing. Let people use what they prefer, as long as they know the rules and how to interpret the outputs. That's the way I go at it. So the final piece is probably picking the use cases that matter the most. So select a few tools, let people use them, continue to scan the market, add, remove as capabilities evolve, but just stick to the non-negotiables of security, ethics, and transparency, and you can't go wrong. So if you break it down, 4 levels: data, savvy workforce, flexible tooling, and then use cases. And that for me is AI readiness and where we need to get to.
Thank you. So thinking about that then, because obviously you've got a number of steps in that process there. And so if we look at kind of the governance element, because obviously when data and AI becomes more accessible across an organization, governance does become crucial. You mentioned a few steps there that you do at AstraZeneca to manage that, and you mentioned let people use what works for them and what they prefer. So how will you ensure that the data remains trusted and secure as you scale that AI use?
Yeah, I've talked about governance a bit earlier. So I want to be clear that governance does not equal bureaucracy if you do it right. I've seen too many bureaucrats claim they are implementing governance, and you need to find that right balance. I've seen the intent misused many times, and it will slow an organization down to the speed of the most risk-averse pencil pusher in your organization, and you've got to avoid that. So governance done right is hugely important. So with something as powerful as AI and as valuable as the information and context-rich data, you need to ensure you're not only doing the basic non-negotiable controls, but you're also using governance to raise standards and quality continuously. So great governance enriches the ingredients, or at least at a minimum ensures it's a consistent quality, and tweaks and experiments with the recipes to get the best possible outcomes for yourself. That's what it should do. That's the plus side. For us, what we do with governance is we don't allow new AI tools loose on our organization and information unless it's gone through a degree of governance checking, first of all. So we check for the non-negotiables. So we do that as a must do. And then from that, we look at how do we ensure we address the matter of trust that you talk about. So if you're suddenly using golden source data in real time, then what is there not to trust would be my question, right? If you've already done the governance on the tooling and you're absolutely certain of the data trust, then you're in a very good place. And if you're applying that security appropriately, where you're applying analytics and AI, and you're ensuring access to data sources are secure, then your controls are in a really good place. And that's exactly where we're going to be focusing on as we move forward with our Business Data Cloud pilot and reviewing the SAP Business Data Cloud connector for Snowflake product.
Thanks. How will these new capabilities, I suppose, shape your long-term digital and AI strategy?
I'll give a very simple, glib answer, which is I see them as being central to that strategy because they're going to drive demonstrable business value from our data assets and our AI capabilities and tools. But they won't be the only capabilities we deploy and develop. But where the data relies on context-rich business data for finance, manufacturing, supply chain, and procurement, it will be key. So it will absolutely be central, as I said, but it will be part of a much bigger ecosystem of tooling, data, and AI for us.
Thank you. And finally, as we come to a close, Russell, what advice would you give to other organisations looking to get more value from their data using AI?
I think I'd probably go back and share the headlines of one of my earlier answers, which is, number one, get the foundations right, the data. Number two, empower and educate your people to make the best use of AI. And number three, choose a few tools quickly, adhere to your non-negotiables, recognize every tool decision you make today is likely to be wrong at some point in the future, and that's okay. And be flexible and don't pour concrete. That for me is probably the basics. Then if you look at what you see from the SAP announcements with the data platforms, that ability to get real-time access to context-rich business data is going to be something you should dive in at and take a look at very, very quickly. But understand it will result in some cultural change being necessary because people are used to moving data around. And also it might create some uncomfortable questions. If you're looking at real-time data, you've got to answer real-time problems. You don't have the ability to massage and change what you present on a PowerPoint. You are presenting reality in front of people. So you need to understand that data and be able to explain it. If you could do that and you can get that cultural shift and that uncomfortableness understood, I think you're in a pretty good place.
Russ, thank you. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you for your insights, especially when you're extremely busy. Thank you for taking the time and best of luck with the go lives you've got coming up.
Thanks a lot, Craig. See you soon.
Will do indeed. And we hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. Please make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and build from a strong foundation.